Shadow Hack. Chapter 151, Feel the Dominance. Li Yunmu closed his eyes for a moment to get the feeling for this skill. Immediately his heart felt complete carefreeness. This was truly heaven-defying. This Safeguard special ability was really awesome. Safeguard only provided 20% damage reduction, but it would be the first to block that percentage of the total attack. If numbers were used to demonstrate, then assuming the enemy's attack at full strength was 100 points of damage, the first 20% of the damage would be reduced by Safeguard. Afterwards, the remaining strength would touch the internal layer of Admiralty cover and the damage would be further reduced by 50%. This way the damage reaching Li Yunmu would only be 40 points. In other words, this Safeguard, which reduced 20% of damage, was virtually the same as his Admiralty cover, with its effects swelling for every 10 levels. One might as well ask what else could he possibly need? But there was something even more terrifying. Even after Li Yunmu had upgraded his Admiralty cover to the 20th level, he still wasn't done with upgrading his skills as he still had 39,700 ability points left. First he used up another 13,000 points on the seals of Underworld Ravenbow and broke them to the 30th level. As for the remaining 26,700 ability points left, he poured them directly into the Copper Body Secrets, this B-grade defensive cultivation method. 11th level Copper Body Secrets, 1000 ability points upgrade. 12th level Copper Body Secrets, 2000 ability points upgrade. 13th level Copper Body Secrets, 3000 ability points upgrade. 14th level Copper Body Secrets, 4000 ability points upgrade. 15th level Copper Body Secrets, 5000 ability points upgrade. 16th level Copper Body Secrets, 6000 ability points upgrade. After Li Yunmu upgraded the Copper Body Secrets by 6 levels, although the ability didn't reach the 20th level, it still gained a new property. When Li Yunmu activated the Copper Body Secrets which had reached the 16th level, the iron color on his body became even more profound. Presently, with this ability's defense alone, he estimated that he could manage to resist an all-out attack from an initial silver crystal Fluxer. After he coupled Admiralty cover with Safeguard, combining these two damage-reducing shields, the real damage he would receive would only be the damage which had passed through King's crystal armor and Copper Body Secrets as well. At this moment, even Li Yunmu himself didn't know how formidable his defense had become. Not to mention that he still had his heavenly world which could absorb an initial stage golden crystal Fluxer's full power attack. Come, I will let you all experience what is true unrivaled defense. I will also let you understand the real terror of more than 100 underworld ravens which can even make a rainbow crystal Fluxer withdraw. After using up the majority of his ability points, Li Yunmu didn't delay anymore and immediately rushed out of the cave and entered the mountain areas which had even more dense and complex environments. He led the 3 shadows while using the agile insect step. Due to it, all of them were like insects. Their speed, postures, and directions were all changing frequently, instead of remaining constant all the time. Sometimes they would speed up, while at other times they might suddenly dash forward. On occasion they would seem as if they were teleporting. One instant they'd be at their original location and by the next they would appear several tens of meters away, having burst forth with insect step. When Li Yunmu used the 5th level frequently changing insect step and activated it to its extreme limit for the first time, even the range attackers known as godly archers would have been driven mad at that moment. His movement speed was extremely fast and swiftly changing, there wasn't anybody that could equal him in it. But that wasn't even all, not only was his movement speed changing all the time, even his direction wasn't constant. Even the movements which couldn't be done because of the human body were being performed by Li Yunmu when he used the extremely agile insect step. Lateral movement, forward dashes, rapid retreats, high leaps, urgent descents, all of them were now possible. After attaining the 5th level, outstanding, he could fully use the movements of all categories of insects to the extreme. If one considered ranged attackers trying to hit him, let alone mentioning an instinctual attack, even if they just wanted to lock on Li Yunmu for a second, that would be difficult to accomplish. How does comprehending a skill with infinite potential produced by the system looks like? Exactly like this. Li Yunmu continued moving while leading the three shadows. They would shoot an arrow in some direction in the mountain forests after every 5 bursts of insect step, always hitting a low-level dimensional beast. Spilling the blood would certainly summon an underworld raven. One person and 3 shadows kept repeating this action, and within a short amount of time, they had forcibly summoned 120 underworld ravens. They stopped at this solely because this was the limit, since only 30 levels of seals on the sage level bow had been broken. However, Li Yunmu wasn't done yet. He next led the 120 underworld ravens deep within some mountain forests to train them. Everywhere this group of pets passed, regardless of whether it was the silver crystal or even the golden crystal dimensional beasts which existed in small numbers in Setting Sun Garrison, one after another, all of them were eaten by the underworld ravens who pounced on them. What followed was a large amount of experience, ability, and blood fiend points. Apart from that, one by one, the amount of flux crystals in Li Yunmu's storage badge started to increase. If one wanted to know what the full power of the H.A.C.K was, then the current situation where the underworld ravens were going on a massacre without any restrictions was the perfect example. All 120 of them ate the flesh of a large amount of dimensional beasts and temporarily broke through to the silver crystal layer. At that time, Li Yunmu stopped crazily training his pets to raise their cultivation. He waved his hand and all the underworld ravens disappeared without a trace. It wasn't that they were reverse summoned to the true 5th dimension, but that all of them had entered Li Yunmu's heavenly world. Li Yun, Li Feng, and Li Tian suddenly shook for a moment and once again returned to Li Yunmu's shadow. After the preparations were over, Li Yunmu unleashed his wings of the wind and started to accelerate, rushing out of the mountain forest he was in and into the clear sky above. His last action was like that of a person poking the hornet's nest. Here's Li Yunmu, he's in the sky. Quickly move, the key to the deity's secret region is on him. You can wear out iron shoes in fruitless searching, and yet by a lucky chance you may find the lost thing without even looking for it. Our Moonwind Manor will be taking him. Li Yunmu rushed about, flying high in the sky. Before a lot of time passed, a squad of high-level Fluxers searching in the vicinity discovered something strange. Their group was quite small, though. It had 8 silver crystal Fluxers and 1 golden crystal Fluxer as a leader, all of them having come to capture Li Yunmu. They had made preparations and even knew that he used some flying equipment based on the video shot by Ocean God's people. Thus, these 9 Fluxers from Wind Moon Manor had also been allocated a set of soldier flying armor. It has to be said that this power called Wind Moon Manor had invested quite a lot to capture Li Yunmu this time. It also had some influence, otherwise they wouldn't have dared to snatch food from a tiger's den. But they could have never anticipated what kind of an abnormal enemy were they going to face. Wind Moon Manor? What nonsense place is that? I will let you all experience this grandfather's truly ferocious arrow. Standing in the sky, Li Yunmu closed his eyes for a moment. His 5 fingers spread once and he fired a volley of targeted arrows towards the person who had discovered him right away. It wasn't just 2 targeted arrows either but rather 6. This attack was just 1 arrow away from the renowned 7 deadly targeted arrows. Wind Moon Manor's 9 Fluxers hadn't finished celebrating when everyone suddenly felt a swift killing intent approaching them. 6 deadly targeted arrows. How is that possible? Chapter 152, Murder for Money. 6 deadly targeted arrows? This Li Yunmu truly has astonishing battle prowess, but unfortunately his cultivation is still too low, Wind Moon Manor's golden crystal Fluxer sneered. Golden-colored flux energy erupted from his whole body. After all, the other party was just a low-level Fluxer. Even if he possessed formidable flux skills, that would mean nothing. The golden crystal Fluxer wanted him to experience just what was called the disparity in strength between 2 opponents with a large gap in their cultivation. The next instant, 2 blades appeared in both of the leader's hands and his blade energy burst forth, colliding head-on against the 6 deadly targeted arrows shot by Li Yunmu. Break for me! Bang! The blade and arrow energies collided, creating a collision within the sky. The golden crystal Fluxer was forced to retreat back a few steps by the arrow energy and Flux arrow was broken into 2. However, the second Flux arrow had already closed in on him. In a split second, the complexion of the golden crystal Fluxer changed. Not good, how can his strength be so terrifying? At this instant he realized that he had been mistaken, gravely mistaken. Normally the flux arrows shot by a low-level Fluxers weren't formidable to this extent. This was the first time he'd encountered this type of an event, and also the final time. Li Yunmu's 6 targeted arrows weren't deadly for nothing. The first arrow may have been broken by the enemy, but the second one knocked away his blade energy, while the third heavily slammed against his armor, and the tyrannical thunder energy exploded to create a small crack in it. The fourth arrow followed right behind and directly penetrated the golden crystal Flux armor, whereas the fifth arrow's thunder energy entered his body. The opponent's body immediately exploded because of this extremely compressed Flux arrow. In a moment, the thunder energy dispersed and his internal organs were turned into coke because of it. That was the moment when the third arrow arrived. Pang! With the 6 arrows arriving one after another, the 8 silver crystal Fluxers only saw their leader crossing swords with the enemy for an instant before he suddenly exploded and a large amount of blood and flesh scattered everywhere. Dead. A high-level Fluxer who had congealed golden crystal armor had been instantly killed by the opponent. Everyone's mind went blank. When they finally sobered up, the thoughts of trying to catch Li Yunmu, which they'd had previously, instantly vanished without any trace. They could only think about one thing at the moment, and that was to escape. Even a golden crystal Fluxer was unable to resist against this opponent's 6 deadly targeted arrows, then what chance did they, as silver crystal Fluxers, had against him? Flee, scatter and flee. It wasn't clear who said it, but once this loud yell was voiced, the 8 silver crystal Fluxers who were already terrified to their core began to flee in different directions without any hesitation. Some of them began to run in opposite direction, while the clever ones removed their exoskeleton wing armor and began to descend, hoping to flee toward the mountain forests underneath. But none of them were able to escape. Want to run? It's too late for that. Li Yunmu sneered while watching everyone trying to run away. He closed his eyes once again and drew his 5 fingers, shooting the arrows far into the distance toward the enemies. While dealing with silver crystal Fluxers, Li Yunmu didn't require many deadly targeted arrows, only one was sufficient. As he thought that, a single Flux arrow laced with thunder energy rushed towards a silver crystal Fluxer retreating in the sky and reached for his back. This arrow seemed to be calculating the change in direction of this person's trajectory, so regardless of how many times he decided to sidestep, in the end, the arrow still slammed heavily against him. Afterwards a firework-like explosion happened in the sky, the second one. What was called attaining the outstanding 6th level. This was. Not only could Li Yunmu successively congeal 6 flux arrows in an instant, the flux energy compression in every single one of them would have already attained the pinnacle. Even if Li Yunmu only possessed the trifling ordinary crystal flux energy, it was sufficient. That is as long as the thunder dark flux energy, which was considered as one of the most destructive type energies, was also added to the mix. Insta-kill. Yes, Li Yunmu might have needed 5 continuous arrows to shoot down that golden crystal Fluxer previously, then presently, for the silver crystal Fluxers, he only needed 1 arrow to insta-kill them. In fact, when he was within the Tower of Glory, he had considered all the silver crystal dimensional beasts as cannon fodder. So then what did he need to speak of human silver crystal Fluxers whose physical bodies were even weaker than those of dimensional beasts? 2nd arrow, 3rd arrow, 4th arrow, 8th arrow. In a blink of an eye, Li Yunmu's 5 fingers quickly congealed the arrows and shot them without the slightest hesitation. He didn't need to watch attentively or check the position of the enemies. All he needed to do was to carefully sense the subtle changes in the surroundings and wind that was sufficient for him. He shot 8 arrows continuously, even at the faster silver crystal Fluxer who had already entered the dense forests and escaped 2 kilometers away. Yet even he was killed, for he didn't get out of the effective range of 3 kilometers swiftly enough. Li Yunmu's final arrow found him like an omnipotent eye and rushed straight toward him. How is it possible? How can his arrow have such a long range? The final thought of the silver crystal Fluxer was filled with confusion. The effective range of Li Yunmu's arrows was close to 3 kilometers, which was the result of him lifting 30 minor seals on the underworld raven bow. If it wasn't at least that much, how could it even be called a sage-level weapon? Li Yunmu didn't need to remove many more, just these 30 levels were enough for the underworld raven sage bow to reveal its formidable power. Moreover, the true sight arrow of the blind shot would still reach his enemy even if they had entered the dense forest cover. For the blind shot, the distance that the flux arrow could reach could be said to be its effective range, since the arrow could kill while within its limits. Go, collect their equipment and weapons for me. The reflection of Li Yunmu shook once and divided into 3. The 3 shadows quickly swept the battlefield. All those silver and golden crystal Fluxers who had come in large numbers to capture him were too naive. Ding! Host has killed 9 enemies with higher cultivation base, thus obtaining 986 experience and ability points. Furthermore, Host has also absorbed 309 Blood Fiend points. Ding! Although Host killed 8 silver crystal Fluxer and 1 golden crystal Fluxer, due to the unavailability of a medium, 3,600 space elements had dissipated. Ding! Because Host killed a golden crystal Fluxer for the first time, the opponent dropped a dimensional box before dying. After the battle concluded, continuous notifications from the system echoed in Li Yunmu's mind for quite a while. What? How did I get so many experience and ability points from killing humans? And even an extremely rare dimensional box also dropped. Li Yunmu was both startled and overjoyed. He recalled that when he killed Ho Wu, he received mere 20-something experience and ability points which could be completely neglected. But right now he killed less than 10 people and earned close to 1,000 experience and ability points. Although the third-dimensional box which was dropped was the most significant treasure. Li Yunmu hadn't expected that killing a high-level Fluxer for the first time would surprisingly cause a dimensional box to drop. Only pity was that the 3,000-something space elements had completely dissipated. Only when battling against more than 5-dimensional life forms or humans who have 3 layers higher cultivation base than you will the experience and ability points earned by Host be multiplied by the difference between the Host's and the other party's cultivation, the system replied faintly. Li Yunmu made a rough estimation. The earnings from each silver crystal Fluxer would have been multiplied by 3, since the difference between their cultivation bases was that of 3 layers, and earnings from the golden crystal Fluxer would have been multiplied by 4. Adding these 2, the earnings did indeed approach close to 1,000. Soon, 3 shadows returned after sweeping the battlefield clean. Li Yunmu opened his storage badge and inside went more than 30 pieces of equipment and weapons, with their quality ranging from C to A grade. Li Yunmu was glad that the golden crystal Fluxer had used an A-grade war blade. This was a huge bounty. It was no wonder then that from the ancient times killing people and looting had been one of the best ways to make plenty of money with little investment. However, at the moment Li Yunmu's whole attention was focused on the dimensional box that now rested in his storage badge. Third dimensional box. It wasn't easy, but he had finally obtained it. Chapter 153, Devil Dragon Bone Refining Secrets. Suddenly, Li Yunmu sensed something and his gaze shifted toward the horizon. At the same time, the system aptly notified him, a dimensional space eye has been detected in the surroundings and is approaching Host. Clearly, the sounds of the recent battle had alerted the monitoring devices created from merging dimensional items with technology. Does it belong to the Fluxer Association? No, it doesn't. It should belong to some private power. The system has already decoded their signal source code. From this moment, Host Stellarcom's connection with the main network is restored. Very good, connect with the main official network and search for all the information related to me. Sort out the useful intelligence and discard the useless, Li Yunmu instructed the system. After locking on the dimensional space eye's movements, he could again access to the official networks. Once Li Yunmu eliminated the squad of high-level Fluxers sent to catch him, he immediately removed his wings of the wind and descended from the sky and began to search for some place to conceal himself. Li Yunmu finally took out the heavy pincer gigantic beetle's egg, which he had exchanged for with 15 tower badges in the Tower of Glory, and dropped a drop of blood essence on it. The egg immediately began to rupture and a hatchback-sized black beetle with huge pincers crawled out of it. This large insect belonged to the huge insect race from the true fifth dimension. Although it only had the strength of a silver crystal layer, but it possessed two special properties. First, it could dig through the earth. It could quickly create a cavity in the earth even on a rocky mountain. Its second ability was the innate defense of its insect shell. Its thick outer shell's defense was comparable to that of the crystal armor of a rainbow crystal fluxer. However, because of the insect's body being extremely huge and cumbersome, this enormous beetle had a threatening appearance but not the power to back it up. The reason why the system had recommended Li Yunmu to choose it was only because of its ability to dig through earth, as well as its outstanding defense so that it could be used as a mount on the surface. When Li Yunmu released the beetle, he would naturally use its abilities. Go, start digging, I want a place to hide, Li Yunmu ordered it through his consciousness. The large pincered beetle began to quickly dig through the earth, and in half a minute, it was already 100 meters deep. What astonished Li Yunmu even more was that not only was this large beetle's digging speed pretty fast, it could also push the dirt backwards to fill the hole behind itself with the help of its 8 limbs. The deeper it dug, the more the hole filled up. It was really incomparably secretive, and this beetle worked with unimaginable efficiency. When Li Yunmu felt that the depth was great enough, he put the large pincered beetle into his heavenly world. Li Yunmu was now 100 meters under the surface of the ground, and the passageway through which he'd come had also been filled. Like this, even a dimensional space eye with an awesome detecting ability would find it difficult to detect his true location in a short time. After this, Li Yunmu disappeared, leaving behind 3 shadows to defend his position while he entered the heavenly world. Dimensional box. The dimensional box was already in his hand. Until now, only 2 of them had fallen into his possession. The first one had contained the coolest Admiralty cover, while the second one contained the extremely formidable Wind God Tornado Kick. What will this third dimensional box provide him with? Li Yunmu was full of expectations towards it. Without saying anything, he slowly opened the lid of the dimensional box. Instantly, a dazzling golden light filled the surroundings and a gold-colored cultivation relaying globe appeared inside. Congratulations, host! You have obtained an A-grade cultivation method from the dimensional box Devil Dragon Bone Refining Secrets. This is an extremely formidable bone refining and muscle strengthening cultivation method. After practicing it to the limit, the muscles and bones of your entire body will become invulnerable, like those of a devil dragon, and possess devil dragon's strength. Do you wish to consume 10 ability points to cultivate the first level of Devil Dragon Bone Refining Secrets? Thump! Li Yunmu's whole body trembled. That thing was really worthy of being called a dimensional box, an item produced by the system which provided what he needed the most. From the beginning, Li Yunmu lacked a top-notch cultivation method to refine his internal organs. Now he had obtained the Devil Dragon Bone Refining Secrets, this top-notch cultivation method for refining one's bones. Although he still couldn't refine his internal organs, according to the system's explanation, this cultivation could not only strengthen his muscles and refine his bones, but it would also amplify the power of his flesh. If Li Yunmu had been required to choose, this kind of cultivation method would have certainly been his first choice. Having obtained it now, he exploded with excitement. System, what kind of a creature is this devil dragon? Li Yunmu had already returned Lunuja's books of monsters to her, but he still had the system scan of the whole book. Devil dragons are creatures which possess the bloodline of the devil dragon. According to human classifications, they are classified as human-type monsters. They have extremely formidable flesh, a powerful bloodline, extraordinary strength, and possess devil dragon's armor. They're a humanoid life form with innately powerful flesh, and the strength of an adult devil dragon may not be inferior to that of a temporal flux master. The flesh of the strong individuals who can awaken the devil dragon's innate skill may even rival that of a powerful flux sage. When this devil dragon bone refining secrets is cultivated to its limits, the strength of host's body will not be inferior to that of a flux sage. Encouraging host to work harder. Awesome! Li Yunmu suddenly noticed that he had obtained an A-grade cultivation from every dimensional box, and apparently all these skills were far more formidable compared to the ones he had obtained in exchange for space elements. Why would I still wait? Let's cultivate. First level, second level, 5th level, 10th level. Li Yunmu used up 550 ability points, and Indiana a moment, the Devil Dragon Bone Refining Secrets was upgraded to the first major threshold of the 10th level. There was a cracking sound that came from all his bones and muscles. The latter were being broadened by some unknown force, becoming even tougher and more durable, while the density of his bones increased greatly. At the same time, Li Yunmu felt as if he was sinking, because of the rapid increase in his body weight. It wasn't like he was becoming fatter, but rather that his bone mass had increased. With the blood and flesh moving around violently, Li Yunmu's height also increased by 3 centimeters, reaching 181. He felt as if there was an enormous power concealed within his body, which was ready to explode. He was almost certain that his fist could break the heavens and his kick shatter the earth. Formidable, formidable, formidable. This was an innately formidable physical body. At this moment, the strength of Li Yunmu's physical body was certainly not greatly inferior to that of a flux master, even if he had only practiced his new cultivation method to the 10th level. Naturally, possessing a powerful physical body didn't mean that he possessed the strength to fight a transcendent flux master. Even so, Li Yunmu had a profound sensation that even if he had to fight against the greatest power in the 5th dimension, a rainbow crystal fluxer, he didn't need to lose heart. It wasn't just excitement in his heart, either, but the realistic confidence which comes from great increase in strength. Ding! Congratulations, host, you have cultivated to the big threshold of the 10th level, and the first ability of Devil Dragon Bone Refining Secrets has appeared. It is called Bone Armor. This bone armor cannot be upgraded to the next level, however. The strength of this ability can only increase along with the increase in your cultivation of Devil Dragon Bone Refining Secrets. Chapter 154, A Source of Easy Money. Devil Dragon Bone Armor? What is this thing? Does it have a more formidable defense than my King Crystal Armor? Host is mistaken, this Devil Dragon Bone Armor can only be generated inside your body, acting as the most important line of defense by protecting the internal organs of your body. The reason why the Dragon Devils can rely on their powerful flesh to battle against Flux Sages is that their Dragon Devil Bone Armor can protect the organs inside their bodies, the system explained. Internal Bone Armor. Li Yunmu clearly hadn't been aware that this armor would be internal. Now that he was though, he suddenly understood that it would protect his weakest point, his organs. This way, his defense would become even more formidable. This being the case, what was he waiting for? He must pile up as much defense as possible. The next instant Li Yunmu accepted the newly appeared Devil Dragon Bone Armor ability. However, right away, a period of truly incomparable suffering began for him. Pain, intermittent numbness, heart-wrenching pain, unprecedented pain. Li Yunmu felt the insides of his body being ripped apart. The pain was such that it left him half dead. At this time, if he could inspect his insides, then it wouldn't be difficult for him to see a layer of bone armor rapidly growing outside his sternum. Humans have 20 ribs in total, but at this moment, all the ribs on top of Li Yunmu's sternum were rapidly expanding to cover his heart, spleen, lungs, kidney, and other weak internal organs of the human body, tightly confining all of them inside. This was a tough bone armor covering all his internal weak points. Even the space within the ribs was also filled up. At this moment, even if Li Yunmu's physical body was pierced by a sharp weapon, there would still be a layer of bone armor which could defend against it. Apart from a set of devil dragon bone armor growing from his sternum, the same thing happened around his brain as well. A layer of bone-like thing began to grow, and a thick layer of armor surrounded the brain, which originally had weak defensive capabilities. Since the most important part of one's body was the head, naturally the protection there was the thickest. Li Yunmu didn't know for how long he would continue to suffer. At times he felt as if quite a long time had passed, and at other times as if only an instant had went by. All he truly knew was that right now his appearance was like that of someone who had come out of a pool of water, for his whole body was perspiring with sweat. Fortunately, this F***ing devil dragon bone armor was finally completely generated. Li Yunmu's defense thus achieved an unprecedented transformation. His final weakness had been removed with this new armor covering his insides. It was no wonder that the physical body of a dragon devil was so tyrannical. It has to be said that the devil dragon bone refining secrets obtained by Li Yunmu had obtained from the dimensional box was extremely impressive and had surpassed his expectations. He firmly clenched his hand to form a fist whose power was similar to that of a hollow artillery shell and heavily slammed it against the garden in his heavenly world. Instantly, a deep hole appeared in the garden because of the fist. Not only had the resistance of Li Yunmu's muscles and bones greatly increased, but his power had also went up substantially. Presently, his one fist had the explosive strength of 1 ton or more. Li Yunmu was confident that even without flux energy his one fist could blow away a silver crystal fluxer. This was the fierceness of devil dragon body refining secrets on the outside. System: for how long have I cultivated devil dragon bone refining secrets just now? It hasn't been long, approximately 1 hour has passed. What about the information I told you to collect? Most of it is just useless information. According to a rough estimation, there are around 256 independent powers spread over the entire central continent who have dispatched around 1,600 something Fluxers with silver crystal or higher level cultivation base to this setting sun garrison camp. So many? Just for me. Li Yunmu felt as if the bitterness of his life had finished and its sweetness begun. At this moment, his mood was very good, and when he spoke there was a giddiness to his voice. 256 powers, and 1,600 Fluxers, which after careful calculation meant H.A.C.K power had dispatched at least 6 people. Using so many high-level Fluxers only to capture an ordinary crystal Fluxer, this was an unprecedented major event. In fact, the news that all the major powers on the central continent were trying to capture Li Yunmu had already caused an uproar. In every city and every region, both online and offline gambling stores opened up one after another, taking bets on this grand hunting operation. Included among the stores was the largest lottery company on the central continent, which had even started offering bets like how long would Li Yunmu hold on. The system told all of his to Li Yunmu. His eyes lit up, and he suddenly felt as if he wasn't completely out of luck. He had instead stumbled upon a huge opportunity. System: the 3 largest lottery companies of central continent, what bets have they put on me? They are offering quite a lot of bets. They have bets on how long you will last. In this bet one can choose the time by himself. The longest is 3 days, which has a compensation rate of 1/36. The system indifferently replied. 1/36? What the F***ck, apparently these betting companies want to go bankrupt. When Li Yunmu heard the bets, a chill went down his body, from head to his toes. He didn't ask the system for further details and timely entered the main star network and arrived at the central continent's largest betting company. After taking a careful look, he confirmed that the system's words were indeed not false. The other party had really opened bets of all sizes focused on the matter of his search and capture. Included among these was the bet with the highest compensation rate, which the system had told him about. The bet was on whether he would get captured within 3 days or not. The odds were 1/36. However, even if this was the case, Li Yunmu saw that the number of people who took this bet wasn't large. Among the Fluxers of the whole central continent, mere 27 people had gambled on him, with the overall amount being less than 300,000 dimensional coins. Other wager which was crazily being bet upon was whether he, Li Yun, and Li Feng, the three disciples, could persist until tonight or not. What the F***ck, what am I still waiting for? This is a far more easier way to make money than fighting. In an instant, Li Yunmu became extremely excited. He could earn 1,200 million after hunting rooster dragons for the whole night, which required him to invest a lot of physical labor into it. This gambling, on the other hand, was far easier compared to hunting monsters. But Li Yunmu wasn't hasty in making a wager. He instead went to the second largest betting firm and looked through the bets offered there. Evidently, the three largest betting firms on the central continent had reached some sort of agreement about the bets offered this time. The largest betting firm offered bets about how long Li Yunmu could persevere for. The second largest then opened wagers on how many high-level Fluxers the three Li sect disciples would kill before they were captured. The options were from 1 to 1,000. Li Yunmu didn't look through all the bets and turned directly to the 1,000 killed one, which had the odds of 1:300. Seeing the number of people wagering on this option, Li Yunmu couldn't even smile. Surprisingly, not one person had taken this bet. F***ck, don't tell me no one is optimistic about me? In fact, Li Yunmu himself also didn't dare to take this wager because this figure was just too large. Even if he took the initiative and went on a killing spree, accomplishing this may still not be within his power. The problem was that even if he had absolute confidence in himself to kill them all, he was still just one person. If all the people started fleeing in different directions, then how could he kill them? Thus, he lowered his aim and found the wager of killing 100 people, the odds of which were 1/42. It was different compared to the 1,001, for some people had taken it, around 20 of them. Chapter 155, Life is a Gamble. Among the 20 people, Li Yunmu surprisingly found some familiar names, like Chu Qingyu. Wait, what the heck? Tang Ruokan? What the F***ck? Xiekyungxiu? What the F***ck is really going on here? He could understand the previous few familiar names wagering on him, but this Xiekyungxiu was a proud daughter of heavens who had the pinnacle grade innate talent. They had never met, so how did she determine that he could kill 100 people? Li Yunmu didn't stay around for long and soon went towards the third largest betting company. The wagers there were quite strange. The business only offered one bet, and that was which power would capture Li Yunmu in the end. The power on which most people had bet upon was the colossal lion city's Lu family. Lu family? Colossal lion city's Lu family? Which family is this that could surprisingly push down even the heavenly cloud city's Fluxer Association's lord? Li Yunmu asked in puzzlement. Replying to host, Colossal Lion City is one of the 10 major citadels under Dawnlight capital city. The Lu family is considered as the most powerful clan of Colossal Lion City, and are more powerful compared to Heavenly Dragon City. Apart from this, the Lu family has a tamer Flux Master who can control enormous lion beasts. These pets are extremely ferocious and possesses great tracking abilities, so everyone betting on the Lu family is quite normal, the system aptly replied. All the above information was clearly sorted out from the excessive information obtained by the system from the main star network. Enormous lions were a breed of ferocious beasts from the 5th dimension. They were at Golden Crystal Layer, and yet, surprisingly, the Lu family could train them as their mounts. It was no wonder then that everyone was betting on them. When listening to this, Li Yunmu only sneered. After all, apart from Rainbow Crystal Fluxers, he didn't need to worry about anyone else in the 5th dimension. Regardless of whether this Lu family used a squad of their enormous lions acting as mounts or pulled up any other nonsense, as long as they dared to come, he would completely crush them all to death. After obtaining information about the wagers placed on him by the 3 largest betting firms, Li Yunmu didn't wait anymore. He went directly to the Good News Pavilion again. When the old man saw Li Yunmu for the third time in a few days, his face instantly lit up. It was completely out of his expectations that at this crucial time, when this person was being hunted by every power on the central continent, he would still dare to enter the virtual dimension world. This youth's guts were already out of this world. Old man, I still have some goods to sell you. I don't have much time right now, so quickly give me a price. Li Yunmu didn't continue with formal greetings and went straight toward the rear courtyard. He waved his hand once, and 2 live rooster dragons who had the strength of 39th grade as well as 9 weapons of different grades appeared in front of the old man. The old shopkeeper was well aware of the youth's situation, so he didn't waste time speaking nonsense and immediately began to appraise the items. The 2 39th grade rooster dragons were sold according to the original price of 65 million per head. Altogether that was 130 million dimensional coins. As for the A-grade war blade, the old shopkeeper personally appraised it for a long while and finally, clenching his teeth, gave a price of 70 million. He then carefully observed Li Yunmu's expression and tried to probe, "What? The price isn't suitable. It isn't that you are not sincere, but this amount of money is still not sufficient." Li Yunmu's sigh almost made the old man cough out blood. More than 200 million, but this was still not enough. What would then be enough for this person? If you urgently need some funds, I can quickly transfer 300 million more from the Good News Pavilion. Before I could have transferred more, but yesterday night, after purchasing your rooster dragons, our side has become more or less empty, too, the old shopkeeper said to Li Yunmu with his eyes shining brightly. On what condition? Li Yunmu was startled for a moment, then shortly after he started to laugh. Old man, don't tell me that you aren't afraid that I will die next moment and your 300 million will turn into dust in a blink of an eye. Haha, given that you still have the confidence to enter the virtual dimension, I'm sure that you, little brother, can weather this calamity. The old shopkeeper laughed lightly. My Good News Pavilion doesn't have any conditions, we only want the friendship of Li Yunmu. A serious gamble. Li Yunmu wanted to bet, and the old shopkeeper also wanted to bet. Li Yunmu wanted to use the future fight as an opportunity to advance himself, while the old shopkeeper also evidently wanted to create a safety net for his family's future. Li Yunmu finally understood that no one could be underestimated. He pondered it for a moment and then nodded his head to agree. As long as it won't go against my principles and I'll have the ability, I will agree. All right then. The old man squinted for a second, then immediately added Li Yunmu as a beneficiary. Li Yunmu had never expected that he would be able to obtain such a large sum of money so quickly and easily. After the 500 million were transferred to him, he once again went to the 3 largest firms. He quickly created an anonymous cash account and made an unprecedentedly large bet, dividing the 530 million dimensional coins among the 3 largest betting firms. However, some of his funds, 60 million something coins, couldn't be put on the wagers because he had already reached the betting limit within all the main establishments. This didn't matter though, because the amount of 470 million was high enough. Li Yunmu also didn't feel like finding another betting firm which had inferior reputation and lacked public trust. After completing everything, he immediately logged out from the network and returned to the cave, which was 100 meters under the ground, and silently started a fire to grill some meat. Right now, it was still too early for him to become the hunter. He needed to wait until the arrival of night. Only under the shield of darkness could the 3 shadows assist him in battle with their full strength. Furthermore, only at night would all the Fluxers rushing about in search of him get tired and enter his mountain zone. At that time, even if they wanted to escape, they wouldn't be able to do so. If a lion fights a rabbit, it still must use its full strength. Not to mention that Li Yunmu's enemy was composed of 1600 high-level Fluxers, all of which represented a major power or clan standing behind them. Heavens only knew what sort of extraordinary dimensional treasure weapons they'd possess. For all he knew, some might even have Sage-level weapons. Li Yunmu didn't dare to underestimate the enemy, but under the darkness of night, he and his shadows were the masters. After a moment of silence, the system said, "Host, you must not underestimate the enemy." According to the system's speculation, based on the data gathered, since the three large betting companies have offered such large wagers, they certainly will intervene at the crucial times to control the outcome of the fight. I expect that. Li Yunmu knew what sort of background the three big powers controlling the three largest betting corporations of the central continents had. The big players entering this kind of betting business certainly possessed an enormous background. Behind the tycoons who ran these three largest betting corporations of central continent stood the true top-notch clans of the three king cities. If something unexpected happens, then they would certainly send someone to take care of the situation. Li Yunmu nodded but didn't say anything. The atmosphere in the cave turned grave on the eve of this unprecedentedly large-scale battle, taking away the prior calmness. Each minute and second passed in extreme slowness, until the color of the sky gradually started to darken. Chapter 156, Death's Arrival. Night came and darkness fell, to the extent that one couldn't even see his own hands. The fifth dimension didn't have any moonlight, but within the Setting Sun Garrison region's Setting Sun mountain range, there were still a lot of Fluxers searching for Li Yunmu's whereabouts. From the beginning of the large-scale search and capture operation, more than 10 hours had passed. Yet the high-level Fluxers coming from every region of the central continent still hadn't found any tracks or even any traces of Li Yunmu. Oh, it wasn't correct to say that they hadn't found any tracks. There was one trail with clues that suggested that Li Yunmu was still within the several hundred kilometers area of the Setting Sun mountain range. The dimensional space eye previously had managed at the last instant to capture a trace of him. But more importantly, the news of the extermination of the Fluxers from the Wind Moon Manor spread out. Due to this, the high-level Fluxers were feeling seriously down. A squad which was composed of 8 silver and 1 golden crystal Fluxers was completely annihilated. This incident had placed everyone on high alert against Li Yunmu, and they didn't dare be careless for a second. He was no longer underestimated as somebody with an ordinary crystal layer cultivation, because he was special. Naturally, there were many high-level Fluxers who expressed their disdain towards it. They simply couldn't believe that a low-level Fluxer's battle strength could be enough to exterminate a group of high-level Fluxers. The news of Wind Moon Manor's squad being wiped out caused them at most to think that they had fallen for the trap of some fellow comrades and nothing more. However, since the dimensional space eye had captured an image of Li Yunmu, certifying that he was still within the region, that made it much easier for the Fluxers hunting him. The squads sent by the powers of each city utilized their tracking methods and vowed to dug out that youngster's whereabouts. There was also a reason why each power's squads were working so hard: great rewards. Since a lot was offered for Li Yunmu's capture, this naturally caused many brave and capable people to join. Among these brave and capable, there was a 5-man squad which was searching around the hole dug out by the large pincer beetle. The strength of each individual in this squad wasn't very high, as they all only had the cultivation of silver crystal layer. But they hadn't come as the main force to deal with Li Yunmu, all they wished was to obtain the bounty for finding Li Yunmu's tracks. "I hate this work. S.H.A.D.W informed me that underneath the surface here, there is a large hole which has just been dug out not long ago," the leader said with a shine in his eyes. The other 4 members also couldn't help but feel pleased with themselves. They had complete confidence in their leader's S.H.A.D.W, because this creature was actually an evolved bat beast of whose kind there were only a few remaining in this world. This beast had weak strength, but it possessed ultrasound detection which was extremely useful when searching. One member of the squad placed his foot lightly on top of the recently moved ground and asked in a low voice, "Will it really be Li Yunmu and his group?" "Definitely, apart from him who's trying to hide, who else would dug out a hole here?" "That's great, we all should immediately notify the bounty administrators." Yes, quickly inform them. Money is secondary here. If the news that Li Yunmu was discovered by our tracking group spread, then our reputation will skyrocket. In the darkness, the squad members waited for quite a while, but they didn't see their squad leader making any movements. It instantly made them sense that something was wrong here. "Captain, why do you keep leaning forward? Move back," one of the members said with a hint of fear rising in his heart. Yet the captain, who was crouched on the ground a dozen meters away from them, still remained motionless. The member who had spoken suddenly became frightened and hastily called out to his other squad mates. However, all of them remained motionless, not saying a word. The fear in the member's heart grew as he watched them standing still not far from him. No need to shout, they've already followed in the footsteps of the hunting god and left for an unknown dimension. They won't be returning again. Who are you? In an instant, this squad member's heart filled with terror. The person who could make your reputation skyrocket. Suddenly, a thin arm caught the man's head and twisted it slightly. Ka-cha! There was a muffled sound, and the last member of the tracking squad followed out after the rest. Bat God Hunter Squad, exterminated. This wasn't the only squad to be exterminated tonight, just one of the first ones. Li Yun Mu, leading Li Yun and the other two shadows, only then came out of the darkness. The 5 people that had just died now gave him several hundred experience and ability points. At the same time, their tracking devices, which had considerable value, also fell into Li Yun Mu's hands. He brought these spoils within his heavenly world, including the corpses. He didn't want to leave anything on the ground. Soon, Li Yun Mu and his 3 shadows disappeared once again. With the cultivation of the Devil Dragon Bone refining secrets reaching the 10th level, the strength of Li Yun Mu's arms had increased greatly. Now he could even kill a silver crystal fluxer like it was child's play. After all, who is the master of shadows? Li Yun Mu started roaming all around the jungle now that it was night. He led his 3 shadows, going on a killing spree. At this time, on the official network board of the largest betting company, many Fluxers who were paying attention to the search and capture operation even at night were suddenly startled. They just watched, unable to voice any thoughts. Ka-cha, 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 ka-cha. On the official network, the names of the Fluxers which were known to be part of the search and capture operation, following the arrival of night, began to break one by one. The breaking and disappearing of a name represented that the Fluxer had died. Since the betting companies were connected to the library's terminal with the Fluxer badges, they could authenticate the news of their death in real time. Apart from certifying that one is a Fluxer and providing some storage space, the Fluxer badge had one more additional function: they could detect their owner's vitality. Thus, the disappearance of the participants' names naturally signified that they had died. This having happened at the ravine in the Setting Sun mountain range, it was pretty clear who the killer was. Wind Moon Manners Squad, exterminated. Bat God Hunting Squad, exterminated. Atom Hunting Squad, exterminated. 100 Earth Cities Tau Family, exterminated. Hidden Dragon Pavilion's Disciple Squad, exterminated. 1000 Unique Valleys Squad, exterminated. Each and every squad member of these squads had come from various powers of the central continent. Some of them were famous and some low-profile high-level Fluxers. At this moment, all of them were being silently killed one after another as if they had encountered a death god. In fact, even their corpses and any trace of their existence seemed to have disappeared from the Setting Sun mountain forest. Everyone felt depressed, for no one had expected this result. During the day, most of them were freely cursing Li Yun Mu for being a gutless chicken. After all, he surprisingly hadn't dared to appear for the whole day, having hidden so deep and well that no one could locate him. However, once night came, this person instantly transformed into a death god and began to collect the lives of those within the Setting Sun mountain forest. These people he was hunting were all high-level Fluxers. In fact, most of them had become famous in the 5th dimension a long time ago. Yet none of them were able to escape from the clutches of this death god. 47 silver crystal Fluxers and 4 golden crystal Fluxers. By now, more than 50 high-level Fluxers had fallen under the hands of this person. As each name on the official network of the betting company disappeared, the stifling sensation continued to rise a little higher in the audience. Even those powers and clans who had participated in this search and capture operation at this moment turned dead silent. A formidable and terrifying pressure enveloped the hearts of people who belonged to the powers participating in the search and capture operation. Chapter 157, The Spell. At this moment, somewhere in the setting sun mountain range, a group of Fluxers with high cultivation was receiving the news through their communication device of the Fluxer names being removed one after another from the Fluxer badge library terminal. The disappearance of 4 golden crystal Fluxer names was a lesson written in blood. This removal of their names because of their death served as a constant reminder to everyone still on the hunt that their opponent wasn't an ordinary low cultivation layer Fluxer, but rather a lunatic who had even caught the eye of the war god temple. Mountain Falcon, you should remain alert. The opponent is extremely formidable and has the ability to kill even golden crystal Fluxers. His ability to conceal himself is also quite formidable. Don't be careless and throw your life away. I understand, leader, but you don't need to be afraid. More than 1,000 Fluxers have entered this mountain range, so he won't be able to bounce for long. However, Mountain Falcon hadn't yet disconnected his communication device when, suddenly, he saw a beam of flickering light coming towards him from far away. What is that? The next instant, before he could manage to grasp what was happening, he sensed an enormous power slamming into the right side of his body. A swift killing intent attacked his mentality, and a berserk thunder energy wreaked havoc on his internal organs. Mountain Falcon instantly took out the sacred life water from his Fluxer badge, but he had already exhausted all his strength and was unable to open the bottle's lid. This bottle, flickering with green-colored light, rolled out of his hand and fell to the ground. Mountain Falcon, calling Mountain Falcon, what's your present situation? The voice of the leader came once again from the communication device hanging on the disciple's ear, but this time he couldn't reply. He was sure he was dying, yet he still couldn't figure out how had his killer shot him from several kilometers away. It was the middle of the night now, after all, and he was also camouflaged against a tree. Still, a single arrow had instantly killed him, this peak silver crystal layer Fluxer who was going to break through to the golden crystal layer anytime now. Crack! There was a small sound nearby, one of someone stepping on a small branch. Moments later, a long, thin arm suddenly picked up the bottle of sacred life water from the ground. Li Yunmu hadn't expected that this treasure, for which he had been searching for a long time and which he hadn't found even in the Tower of Glory, would surprisingly be carried by a silver crystal Fluxer. Dad, your both legs will be healed. A trace of excitement rose within Li Yunmu's heart, and he quickly collected this bottle of sacred life water and put it in his Fluxer badge. Then he waved his hand once again and moved all of Mountain Falcon's equipment, including his body, into his heavenly world. However, at this moment, Li Yunmu suddenly felt his heartbeat quicken. He subconsciously dodged sideways, yet a gold-colored flux beam from a ray gun still slammed directly into his chest. Li Yunmu was sent flying. After knocking against and breaking many thick trees, he lay sprawled on the ground, out of breath. Li Yunmu, I've finally caught you. Mountain Falcon, I'm sorry I'm late. A golden crystal Fluxer emitting threatening aura rushed over from a distant place. He, Bai Chong Shan, was exactly the leader Mountain Falcon had been talking to. He was one of the top 10 most powerful in his secondary city last year, and his cultivation base was just one step away from entering Rainbow Crystal Layer. Due to this, he was great at combat. Bai Chong Shan couldn't find the corpse of Mountain Falcon, so he quickly went to check up on Li Yunmu, who had lost consciousness. As he stood there, a hint of excitement started to rise in his cold heart. Ancient deity's secret region's key, the descendant who possessed the battle sage bloodline, the person who was being chased by more than 200 powers of the central continent, all of these things were now in his, Bai Changshan's, possession. However, at this time, he suddenly sensed that Li Yunmu, who previously had been out cold, suddenly opened his eyes. Instantly, they filled with an even more berserk-killing intent. World-killing fist, kill him for me. A fist which seemed to seal off the world attacked Bai Changshan's chest in retaliation. He tried his best to dodge, but Li Yunmu's fist felt as if contained the mighty force of an entire world. Thus, even though flux energy erupted from his whole body, he could only move half an inch. Bang! A powerful fist slammed heavily against Bai Changshan's golden crystal armor, which had formidable defense, and it cracked like glass. Berserk-killing intent and thunder energy invaded his body, after he was hit by the explosive fist which seemed to be able to crush an entire world. You, just what kind of monster are you? This was the last thought in Bai Changshan's mind before he collapsed. Yes, in Bai Changshan's eyes, the present Li Yunmu was like a humanoid beast. The power contained in his fist was just too great, not something he should possess. Not only was his fist brimming with the power of his flesh, which had become extremely strong recently, it also contained the fatal thunder energy. And on top of that there was also the crushing power of the world-killing fist. The amount of world power which Li Yunmu could utilize had already reached the level of an all-out attack of a golden crystal fluxer. In a normal situation he would not use it casually, for the fear of revealing his secret. However, dead people didn't reveal secrets. They knew best how to keep something private. Bai Changshan, dead. Ka-cha. On the main network, almost at the same time, the line representing Bai Changshan's name cracked and disappeared. Bai Changshan is dead. How is that possible? He's Heavenly Falcon City's Bai family's most outstanding person in the younger generation. How could he perish here? Astonished, everyone suddenly felt a chill going down their bodies. One of the true top 10 of a secondary city last year, a person whose combat strength was so extraordinary that he could fight against rainbow crystal fluxers had surprisingly fallen at some nameless desolate mountain in Setting Sun Mountain. Bai Changshan's death seemed to have lifted the spell of no one being able to find Li Yunmu, for before long a pretty and elegant woman who was holding a frightful imperial spear could be seen calmly roaming within the woods. Given the fact that almost everyone was aware that numerous high-level fluxers had silently died around here and she still dared to move independently, it was clear that she had a lot of self-confidence. Suddenly she stopped in place after raising her foot to take another step. Right then, a flickering beam of light closed in on her, about to go straight through her. 6 deadly targeted arrows. Nice. The thin lips of the pretty and elegant woman curled upwards slightly. Her figure instantly flickered and she unleashed a specific rhythmic footstep and forcefully dodged 3 of the arrows. The 4th one struck her spear, but the energy within it did not diminish and it fiercely collided against the 5th arrow. Only when the 6th arrow arrived did the woman brought back the spear close to her body and erected it in front of herself. Clang! The arrow collided with the spear, resulting in an explosion that forced the woman to retreat a few steps. Still, she destroyed 6 deadly targeted arrow. Clearly she was quite formidable. At this time, the shadow of a huge tree on her side flickered. Using that moment of movement to hide his own actions, a black crystal armor wearer who was hidden there launched a strike towards her face from above. His war blade, which was laced with black-colored energy, emitted an icy aura. There was a thunder dragon coiled around it, and though it hadn't yet reached the woman, its intensely fluctuating killing intent had already enveloped her whole body. Violent blade skill. Which disciple of the Li sect are you? Chapter 158, Hunter becomes the hunted. Clang! Li Feng swung towards the rainbow armor on the woman's body. The first strike hadn't injured her, but it was quickly followed by another and another. They fell on her like howling wind and torrential rain. Yet the woman kept operating her frightful imperial spear calmly, thrusting it back and forth repeatedly to counter-attack. Surprisingly, she hadn't been suppressed by Violent Blade's successive strikes. However, soon her expression changed. This was because at some unknown point in time someone had once again snuck up on her and then attacked from behind using Violent Blade. Now she faced an opponent in front of her and another at her back. Both of them were continuously using the same skill, one whose strikes were each heavier and swifter than the previous ones. The pressure on the beautiful woman instantly increased greatly. However, even with this kind of assault, she didn't feel threatened. Li Yunmu wasn't alone, both Li Yun and Li Feng were also fighting. The three of them had joined hands to deal with this woman. Another flux arrow was shot, laced with thunder energy, and its power made the woman retreat 2 steps. The large amount of thunder energy along with the blood fiend's cold energy created a prickling sensation in her body. Immense regret entered the woman's heart. These 3 people surprisingly managed to pose an unprecedented threat to her life. When the arrow hit the woman, she wasn't affected in any way besides being forced to take a few steps back. The problem was that when she did so, a powerful kick slammed into her back. This attack seemed to contain some sort of mysterious whirlwind power and was launched by the 4th attacker who had dropped from the sky. How can there still be a 4th person? How can there be a 4th person using Li Sek's violent blade skill and wind god tornado kick? This was the final thought in that woman's mind. After a long while, Li Yunmu arrived at the scene holding the underworld raven bow, finally clearly seeing the appearance of the woman whom he had just killed. She was an unrivaled beauty with an outstanding temperament. Just because of these attributes she wasn't inferior to Ling Shuang in any way. After all, she was a 19-year-old who had congealed rainbow armor. She was definitely not someone ordinary from a younger generation of some large clan because of it, and she also held the frightful imperial spear, which was a 5th-dimensional treasure weapon, in her hand. Unfortunately she had been insistent on provoking Li Yunmu, and so even if she was the most beautiful person on earth and her background was high in the clouds, he still had to kill her. A rare hint of admiration appeared in Li Yunmu's heart for this woman. He picked up her body, as well as the frightful imperial spear, and placed them in his heavenly world. This woman had indeed been powerful. This was not because of her cultivation base though, but because of her battle prowess. When fighting with her, Li Yunmu felt as if he had returned to that day when he had fought against Ling Shuang. Unfortunately for her though, the present Li Yunmu wasn't the same as before, when he had only used 2nd-level violent blade. He wasn't just 1 person or 2 anymore either, but 4. After he got rid of the woman, a large amount of high cultivation Fluxers rushed over. After all, she had really taken her time to die. System, how many people have I already killed? Host has already killed 79 silver crystal Fluxers, 11 golden crystal Fluxers, and 1 rainbow crystal Fluxer. The toll is thus 91. Not bad, just a little away from 100. Li Yunmu calmly scuttled into the woods and in a moment once again disappeared without a trace. It wasn't that he could move incredibly swiftly, but that he used the underground passage created by the large pincer beetle to appear in a new location. While moving there, he had to accept that this new pet of his he'd acquired due to the system's suggestion truly had some weird abilities. No wonder then that it had entered the rewards of the Tower of Glory. Ka-cha! On the main network of the betting company, a name cracked and disappeared. The significance of it caused everyone to collectively take in a shuddering breath. Li Qinghong, someone yelled out with a shiver running down his spine. All the Fluxers felt as if a bolt of lightning had struck them and the earth had turned upside down. Li Qinghong dead? How could she fall here as well? Some newcomer Fluxer didn't know about her and couldn't refrain from asking, who was this Li Qinghong? She was the most outstanding female disciple of H.A.C.K 2 years ago. She was only 19 years old, but heavens had bestowed the pinnacle grade innate talent on her, thus the H.A.C.K viewed her as the disciple most likely to enter domain sage realm. If she hadn't left the H.A.C.K 2 years ago for some unknown reason and decided to stay within the 5th dimension for protection, then she would have long ago entered the Flux Sage layer. Someone provided a simple explanation and instantly many newcomer Fluxers were left extremely shocked. This Li Qinghong woman had been so formidable. Pinnacle grade innate talent bestowed by heavens, former most outstanding disciple of H.A.C.K, rainbow crystal layer, regardless of whichever information they looked at, all of it caused people to feel suffocated. If she had just died on Earth, perhaps it wouldn't have caused such a commotion. However, Li Qinghong had died within the fifth dimension, where she stood at the top of the food chain with her strength. Apart from 12 Light King grade dimensional beasts, who else within the fifth dimension could have dealt with her? Yet she had been just killed by Li Yunmu. Perhaps Li Yunmu hadn't killed Li Qinghong by himself, but was that important? No, it didn't matter. She was formidable to the extent that the disciples of Chao Tian sect hadn't been able to fight her for numerous years, yet she had been outmatched by a single person, and this person was called Li Yunmu. 93, 97, 100 kills. Everyone was still in shock from the news of Li Qinghong's death, but Li Yunmu's hand of death hadn't stopped. The names representing many high cultivation Fluxers cracked and disappeared within a brief period of 10 minutes. During this time, 2 golden crystal and 1 rainbow crystal Fluxer had silently died under Li Yunmu's hands. All the people who were paying close attention to this search and capture operation of unprecedented scale were stupefied again and again, especially after the death of Li Qinghong. Later, another person who had suppressed his cultivation and remained within the fifth dimension for 2 years, Blade Overlord Lin Jian, fell in the setting sun mountain. Only at this moment did some people finally manage to react. He just couldn't be suppressed. Even if there were still many high cultivation Fluxers present within the setting sun mountain, Li Yunmu's heaven-defying battle prowess couldn't be suppressed. He was unrivaled within the fifth dimension, similar to how a battle sage stood above the world, with no one worthy to be named his opponent. 100 kills heavens. That anonymous person who had wagered 200 million on 100 people being killed shouldn't be Li Yunmu, right? At this moment, the Fluxers in setting sun mountain range could no longer continue to act like they stood above the world like before. Instead, each and every one of them began to feel danger, for Baichang Shan, Li Qinghong, Blade Overlord Lin Jian, one after the other, had fallen. At this time, the positions of the hunter and the hunted had begun to slowly change. Don't wander off. All of us must remain together and not leave on our own. Our present target has completely exceeded common sense. A golden crystal Fluxer from Heavenly Lake Mountain gathered all his members nervously, as if some powerful enemy was getting close. However, at that moment a heavenly dog resembling an enormous deity pounced on them, appearing suddenly from the darkness. This was the skill Heavenly Dog engulfs moon. Everyone from the Heavenly Lake Mountain was greatly startled. However, the next instant they discovered that there wasn't only one shot of Heavenly Dog engulfs moon but 4. From all 4 directions, all the enormous Heavenly Dogs were rushing towards them, full of a devouring aura. Bang! 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 4 explosions, large enough to cause a lunar eclipse, resounded the moment the arrows reached their targets. Instantly all the Fluxers of Heavenly Lake Mountain were exterminated. Ka-cha, 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 ka-cha. Another 9 names cracked and disappeared. The squad of Heavenly Lake Mountain was instantly destroyed. The people watching were left completely shocked. At this moment though, they suddenly discovered that after Li Yunmu had attained 100 kills, his killing rate became even quicker, to the extent of being called berserk. Die, you monstrous freak! Bang! 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 3 golden crystal Fluxers joined hands and attacked Li Yunmu together using their fists. However, Li Yunmu didn't even need to move from his position. Weak, too weak. This little bit of power is unable to even penetrate my 5th layer of armor, the Devil Dragon Bone Armor. Chapter 159, Halted Fluxers. Weak, too weak, this little bit of power is unable to even penetrate my 5th layer of armor, the Devil Dragon Bone Armor. The next instant the shadow behind Li Yunmu's body shook a little, and immediately it divided into 3 shadowy figures whose faces could not be seen. They heavily slammed their fists towards the 3 golden crystal Fluxers who were joining hands. World-killing fist. Unless it was a desperate situation, Li Yunmu would not use his full strength to launch this skill of his. After all, it would reveal that he possessed world power, but dead people couldn't reveal anything. The three golden Fluxers had never expected that even after joining hands they wouldn't be able to break Li Yunmu's defense. Though what surpassed their imaginations even more was that Li Yunmu's shadow suddenly came alive and began to fight. And it wasn't alone either, having divided into three, each of which then launched a fist towards one of the trio. Bang! Due to the suddenness of the attack as well as the descent of world power, which seemed to be able to seal the whole world, the trio basically had no chance to evade. One explosion resounded after another. A sound similar to a world being crushed echoed and the bodies of two golden crystal Fluxers disintegrated on the spot, certifying their death beyond the shadow of doubt. However, a divine light rose from the body of the last Fluxer, a light that belonged to a protection talisman. These kind of talismans were more or less the same as the protective jade coin which Lin Yuero had given Li Yunmu. However, only those who had entered the sage realm had the ability to manufacture such things. As for what stage of attack could these talismans protect against, that would depend on the strength of the Flux Sage and whether he was willing to use resources on manufacturing it. The golden crystal Fluxer who had endured the world-killing fist had clearly activated the divine light protective talisman to save his life at the most crucial time. This meant that there was a Flux Sage behind his back or, perhaps, he had some connection to one. Naturally, these two theories wouldn't hold if he had obtained this treasure by some accident. This kind of situation was within Li Yunmu's expectations. After all, among all the people sent by the powers from all over the central continent to capture him, someone possessing a diving light protective talisman wasn't the least bit strange. But so what? Since Li Yunmu had dared to use world power to attack, then naturally he would not allow this person to remain alive. The fourth killing fist was used, coming straight for the golden crystal Fluxer. This attack was unleashed by Li Yunmu himself. Bang! This time a second divine light protective talisman was revealed by the opponent. Yes, using two divine light protective talismans continuously, this person was certainly a descendant of a Flux Sage. Otherwise there was no way he could have been bestowed two such precious treasures, for Flux Sages saw all other cultivators as no more than ants crawling about. I want to see how many divine light protective talismans you have. The next instant Li Yunmu and his three shadows took out their blood fiend cold thunder blades and ruthlessly sliced down from above, towards the golden crystal Fluxer who had already ran a dozen meters away. Ultra Aurora Killing Justice. This was Aurora Killing Justice after he had utilized his full strength to slash down. Instantly, four extremely sharp blade energies, laced together with a hint of both freezing energy and thunder, went after the opponent. Ding! The third divine light protective talisman appeared, but the next three extremely fierce blade energies ruthlessly stamped on the back of the Fluxer's back. The first attack could only break down more than half of the golden crystal armor before exhausting itself. The second energy wave came right after and instantly finished off the armor. The third attack then sliced the Fluxer, who had the protection of a Flux Sage, into two. Under Ultra Aurora Killing Justice's attack mixed with Thunder Dark Flux Energy's destructive power, the Fluxer's body, which had lost the defense of its golden crystal armor, was like paper. Even after using three divine light protective talismans in succession, this golden crystal Fluxer still hadn't managed to flee more than 30 meters away before being cut down. It was exactly as his group had bellowed in rage previously. Li Yunmu was really a freak of nature. He couldn't be judged by normal standards. Three divine light protective talismans were still unable to defend a person's life. Suddenly, the face of a middle-aged man, who should be the Flux Sage behind him, condensed out of the corpse. This person attentively looked at Li Yunmu for few seconds before finally disappearing. But so what if he was a Flux Sage? This was the fifth dimension. Anyone with a strength higher than Rainbow Crystal Layer was barred from entering here. As long as a person wasn't a true deity, then they would still have to follow the rules of the fifth dimension. Li Yunmu didn't have many misgivings and waved his hand right away, collecting the bodies of the 2 golden crystal Fluxers into his heavenly world. After this was done, he walked to the corpse of that golden crystal Fluxer who had received the protection of the sage, and soon, he found 3 extraordinary items on him. First one was a treasure weapon of the 5th dimension, a pair of guitars. Li Yunmu had never expected that after Li Qinghong, he would find more 5th-dimensional treasure weapons on someone else as well. It was really no wonder then that the trade of killing and looting corpses had flourished since ages ago. As long as one had strength, his earnings would be magnificent. The second item was a blood pearl which was emitting some mysterious light. This was certainly another extraordinary item, however Li Yunmu couldn't appraise it. The third item was a crane-shaped crystal which was only as big as a child's fist. Li Yunmu didn't know what kind of item it was, but he was aware that it would also be worth an outstanding amount of money. Li Yunmu searched the corpse for the Fluxer badge, which was already broken, to learn the dead man's name. Zhang Tianhang? This name sounds somewhat familiar. Compared to all the golden crystal Fluxers Li Yunmu had killed previously, this person was certainly a wealthy 3rd generation. No, it would be better to call him a sage's 3rd generation. His entire body was overflowing with wealth. Among the 3 items he carried on him, there wasn't even one which was ordinary. Unfortunately, after the vitality of Fluxer was stilled, the small space provided by the Fluxer badge had broken down immediately. Otherwise, Li Yunmu, who had killed so many Fluxers dispatched by various powers of the central continent, would have had the chance to become truly wealthy. Really, what a pity. Naturally, this was also the reason why this large-scale operation's objective was to capture Li Yunmu and not kill him. All the powers were afraid of losing the contents inside his Fluxer badge. So there were both merits and demerits to this property of the Fluxer badge. After sweeping the battlefield completely, the 3 shadows shook once and united, returning to wait patiently as Li Yunmu's shadow. Li Yunmu then repeatedly burst forth with insect step, rushing towards another hunting ground. 156 kills. Zhang Tianhang also dead. It cannot be, according to rumors, the Flux sage ancestor of his family had passed down 3 divine light protective talismans to him. Because of them, this guy had ran around the 5th dimension quite arrogantly. Apart from those Fluxers who were staying in the 5th dimension by suppressing their cultivation base, he didn't care about provoking anyone else. Haha, you all heard right. He didn't dare to provoke those who had suppressed their cultivation bases, but Li Yunmu has already killed 2 such people, so why would he mind the sage ancestor behind him? Good, good. This moron finally provoked someone more ruthless than him. It seems this Li Yunmu will also be turning into one of those who suppress their cultivation to stay within the 5th dimension. It not only seems so, it will be so. He's already killed so many Fluxers with powerful backgrounds, so we can already consider him as one of those halted Fluxers. Chapter 160, The Great Siege. Halted Fluxer was a special title in the 5th dimension. People who managed to offend great powers in the real world could only suppress their cultivation and remain within the 5th dimension. They represented the pinnacle power within it and used this status to resist against the large powers hunting them. If they ascended to the 6th dimension, they would lose the protection of the 5th dimension's laws and would certainly encounter transcendent flux masters or higher-level fluxers who would try to hunt them down. Could Li Yunmu be considered a halted fluxer? Naturally no, his cultivation still had to attain the pinnacle layer allowed by the laws of the 5th dimension, so how could he be considered another halted fluxer? However, given his present situation, he indeed could be considered as half-step halted fluxer without any doubt. After all, right now Li Yunmu basically couldn't leave the 5th dimension and step into the outside world. If he did that, most probably some flux master or higher level fluxer would come to hunt him. As for the mysterious Li sect standing behind him, many people had apprehensions about it. But this didn't mean that it had the power to intimidate all the powers. Only if a battle sage personally stepped in to kill the people who dared to come after Li Yunmu would that change. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to intimidate some of the enormously powerful organizations and families. When all is said and done, he was only a disciple of a sect, and a disciple didn't mean anything to a sect. However, Li Yunmu had never thought that far. Halted Fluxer? He was far from that. By the time his cultivation attained the rainbow crystal grade, with his resources and united battle strength of the multiple shadows, even if he ascended to next dimension, what would he need to fear? This night, Li Yunmu seemed to have transformed into a representative of death. The speed at which he was slaughtering people became faster and faster. One person, 3 shadows kept shooting blind shots with their eyes closed. One after another, true sight arrows laced with thunder energy seemed to grow eyes and kill silver crystal fluxers, one after another. As long as a person's cultivation hadn't reached golden crystal layer and they entered the 3-kilometer effective range of Li Yunmu's skill, they would be shot dead by continuous arrows. All of which were full of thunder energy, one of the most destructive energies. 157 killed, 163 killed, 179 killed, 182 killed, 200 killed. Finally, when Li Yunmu led Li Yun, Li Feng and Li Tian to fight to another side of the mountain, the kill count broke through 200. Many families and powers finally realized one thing at that moment, that the troops they had dispatched were completely unable to catch Li Yunmu. Furthermore, let alone speaking of catching, even killing him wasn't possible. This was clear from the intelligence received from the front lines. It made it obvious that not only was Li Yunmu's personal combat strength heaven-defying, he had also been joined by 3 disciples of Li's sect in fighting against the hunters. One Li Yunmu was already hard enough to kill, but now 3 more disciples of Li's sect had joined him. The fact that caused the most despair to these powers, though, was that the defenses of every Li sect's disciple surpassed their imagination. Even an attack from Golden Crystal Fluxer using his full strength wasn't able to injure them in the slightest. Soon, the first group of powers managed to wake up and recalled their forces. Nearly 2,000 Fluxers with high cultivation, swarming the setting sun mountain range, instantly retreated. They had come here possessing high fighting spirit, but could only run with their tails between their legs at the end. At this setting sun mountain range battlefield, the silver crystal Fluxers were no more than cannon fodder, while golden crystal Fluxers were perishing in large numbers. The final group, which had the qualifications to remain behind, represented the group of Fluxers which were considered as most powerful within the 5th dimension. They were those who had congealed golden crystal flux armor and were only half a step away from entering rainbow crystal layer. With their combat strength, these people were quite hard to defeat for the people with the same cultivation. If that wasn't so, they wouldn't be so confident as to remain behind along with the group of rainbow crystal Fluxers who stood at the peak of the 5th dimension. Altogether there 11 of them who chose to stay. It wasn't that the number of rainbow crystal Fluxers was extremely small. The main reason was that those Fluxers who had attained the rainbow crystal layer either didn't appear in the world since they were preparing to enter the 6th dimension, or had already ascended and were no longer present in this dimension. It was unknown what mutual agreement the 11 people had reached, for they assembled together to wait for their target. Li Yunmu, we don't need to fight against each other. Just hand over the key to the secret region to us. Once we have it, we will leave this place. After the night battle, which had lasted for more than half of the night, the 11 people with power equivalent to Rainbow Layer assembled together and formed a large-scale blockade. Each position had at least 2 rainbow crystal level Fluxers protecting it together. What left Li Yunmu even more flabbergasted was that these people certainly had come prepared. They were equipped with heavenly bat wings, which were considered as the most technologically advanced product of the central continent. Every people halted in the sky and looked straight at the distant Li Yunmu. According to rumors, these technologically advanced heavenly bat wings was the only wing armor sold within the market which could be used in actual combat. Before it, the exoskeleton wing armor and others were useless, they only provided the ability to fly. These heavenly bat wings, though, could be used for fighting in sky. Reportedly, the technology used in the latest releases of this product were especially suited for such an activity. What's more, the 11 people, which had the strength of rainbow crystal layer, had merged exactly with this 4th-generation product. They really had come well prepared. However, how could they know that the wings refined by Li Yunmei weren't any ordinary wings? They had been torn from a wind child. Thus, Li Yunmei naturally didn't take their urging seriously. Instead, he was anxiously hiding in a defensive position. At the moment, after having cultivated the devil dragon bone refining secrets, he could already fight on even grounds with a rainbow crystal fluxer. If he joined forces with the 3 shadows, then even a formidable person like Li Qinghong couldn't resist them and would only perish. Apart from these 11 people who had the strength of rainbow crystal layer, there were several dimensional space eyes moving in a spiral over the area, gradually forming a confinement ring. Below, in the woods, there were also several golden crystal fluxers who were acting as reserves. Among them, the most eye-catching group was formed of 18 people, each of whom had a cultivation of golden crystal fluxer. All of them were riding an enormous beast. Presumably, these were the people from Lu family of Colossal Lion City. Additionally, there was another group of people composed of 20 individuals. All of them had a multicolored lizard sitting on their shoulder. The system aptly informed Li Yunmei that these people were from Earth Dragon Valley. This place had power only second to that of sex. Usually they paid minimal attention to the worldly matters and very few of them took the effort to participate in them. But the deity region matter had brought them out. The third power present was an influential family from the 3 king cities. The number of people that belonged to this faction was quite large, reaching altogether 36 people. Each of them was a golden crystal fluxer and wore quite strange equipment. Surprisingly, they weren't using ordinary weapons but were carrying pitch-black artillery on their backs. Those are individual heavy-dimensional cannons which use the fluxer's flux energy to fire. Under ordinary circumstance, one needs to be at least a silver crystal fluxer to operate them. Each cannon has the power to kill an initial golden crystal fluxer. If they fired at host simultaneously, even host's defense may not be able to resist, the system faintly warned Li Yunmei. He nodded. As long as he didn't allow the enemy to fire collectively, he didn't need to fear them.